The story begins as a beautiful girl woke up and turned off the alarm clock. She went to the mirror and could not believe it, she had become a girl. As it turned out, even yesterday he was a girl, but for some reason he turned into a girl. He couldn't believe for a long time that he had become a girl and thought he was dreaming. He was 6 feet tall and had C-size breasts. He started to feel himself, hoping he woke up and it was all a dream, but the feeling of pain was very real and he was convinced he had become a beautiful girl. The main character was terrified because he had never met a girl in his life, and today he became a girl himself and he didn't want anyone to know about it. At that moment his sister came to him and tried to open the door to wake him up. When he heard her voice he didn't want to let her in, otherwise she would know that he had become a girl. Luo Yuchen decided to change into his school uniform. At this time his sister got scared for his brother as he didn't answer her and didn't open the door. She kicked the door to his room. His sister entered the room and saw a beautiful girl in a school uniform. His sister wondered who she was and where had her brother Luo Yuchen gone. But he had no choice but to pretend. He said he was Luo Yuchen's girlfriend and her name was Lin Ruoyu, and Luo had already left, so he told his sister not to look for him. Sis suspected something and thought about it. At that moment Luo said goodbye to her and quickly left. The sister thought this girl was hiding something, and as for Luo himself, she was angry with him because he left without eating the breakfast she had prepared for him. At that time Luo came to school and all the students at school were shocked by his beauty. They had never seen her before. They thought she was a transfer student from another school. Suddenly a tall guy came up to him and he wanted to meet such a beautiful girl. He introduced himself to her as Lu Rinjia and said he was her classmate. She looked at him surprised and asked what he wanted from her. Rinji said he fell in love with her at first sight and that their meeting was a gift from fate. She asked him if they knew each other, and Rinji said he just wanted to meet her. She told him why he would confess his love to someone he had just met, because it was too much responsibility and should not be taken so lightly to it. She didn't want to talk to him anymore and walked away from him. He turned around and told her that at least he had been scolded by a pretty girl. At this time in her class the classmates were looking at pictures of girls on their phones. She walked in the classroom and all the classmates were very surprised, because they had never seen her before. She realized she couldn't be at school with all the boys. She needed a plan to get out as soon as possible. She sat behind the blonde boy. He didn't know who she was because he had never seen her before. He decided to take the initiative and tried to start a dialogue with her, but she said she was against it and had other things to do. After a while, another classmate came and told her that he was a member of a youth league and he would be glad to help her. But she didn't understand why all her classmates wanted to talk to her, and there was a whole line of boys around her. Suddenly the blonde boy was pushed and this made him very angry. He told them all they should be ashamed of themselves because a bunch of big guys were crowding around a weak and defenseless girl and told them all to go back to their places. All the classmates dispersed and at that moment she thought that this guy was not so bad. He sat down on his knee and told her, "My queen, I am different from everyone else here, meeting you was destiny, please accept my love." The other classmate was not happy with his behavior and said he was a lying piece of trash, but he answered him, "You are the only real cheaters here. I am the only one here who has the courage to tell her what we are all thinking. I'm different, I'm expressing my greed, that's what true honesty is." At this time Lin was sitting and trying to stay calm. Suddenly she felt someone standing behind her. She turned around and saw a student who told her, "I am the caretaker of the second class and you don't seem to be from our class." Lin introduced herself and said she had come on behalf of Yu Chen. He had something to do today, so he couldn't come to school. At this moment the blonde classmate asked, "Are she and Luo Yucheng really close?" Lin said they were just friends. Lin said to the classmate, "Then I'll let you tell the teacher yourself. I'm sorry to bother you, now I have to go." But the classmate said it would be better if she explained everything to the teacher herself in the right way, and offered to walk her to the study department. But Lin didn't want to go anywhere, so she tried to make excuses. But her classmate insisted that she had to fill out the form for Luo Yuqing in person, as only parents or close relatives could fill out the form, because Luo Yuqian was absent. Lin had no options to refuse, because in that case if she did not fill out her absence, Luo Yuqing might be in trouble the next day, meaning she might be in trouble. After a while Lin filled out the form on behalf of Li Ruoyu and left the teacher's office, but the principal said he would contact her parents anyway, but since her mother was in another country, the principal would not be able to contact her. Lin thought if her mother heard Lin Ruoyu's name, she would think I had a girlfriend, and she would surely fly home to see her future daughter-in-law. But it can't go on like this forever, I have to figure out how to live in a girl's body now. And why am I so tired? It seems my body isn't used to the changes yet. Mother, father, forgive me for becoming like this. He thought for so long that he didn't notice he walked into one of Jianqing's abandoned neighborhoods and thought, how did I get here? After all, no one comes to this place voluntarily, except bandits, this place has become their home. Suddenly, some guys came up to him and asked her what a girl like her was doing in this place, did she come to find a guy to date? There were 3 of them and they started making jokes for days, and at the same time, they molested her. Luo Yuqing didn't understand how to get out of this situation and said, I was just passing by, I didn't want to distract you. One of them told her to stop worrying about nothing, even though it's not very nice here, but besides, no one will interrupt them. At this point he took an iron trumpet and warned them if they came near him they would know what real pain was. But the bully took the iron pipe from him without any problem. The bully hit him with this pipe and said, Luo thought, good thing I didn't faint from the blow. The bully came up to him and said he didn't want to ruin such a pretty face. But at that moment Luo kicked him in the groin area. The bully did not expect such a blow and flew away from him for several meters. All the other hooligans stood in a stupor, since they did not understand how she could hit with such force. Luo thought, what, since when am I so strong? The remaining 2 bullies sat down on their knees and started begging her forgiveness, and offered her to be their new boss. She told them to just get the hell out of here so she'd never see them again. They obeyed her, took their boss and left. He stood there perplexed and didn't understand where he got that power. He decided to test it and wanted to hit the wall with all his might, but at the last moment he turned back into a boy. He looked at the time, and assumed that the transformation was over by noon, but he was standing in a skirt and he couldn't let anyone see him, for if anyone found out about it, his quiet life would be over. He decided to call his friend Su Mo to help him. His friend picked up the phone and said he didn't have time for that and wished him good luck. Luo thought, so this bastard doesn't want to help me? So he decided to call him again and told him that he knows that Su Mo snuck into the girls' high school last week, and if he doesn't want others to know about it, he made it a condition that he bring him men's school uniforms in 30 minutes. 20 minutes later Su Mo ran to him with the men's uniforms, and told him that he had run just under 5 kilometers in 20 minutes because of him. Su Mo asked him, of course I am always responsible for my words, but other than that, what about you? First you asked your girlfriend to take you aside and then you put on the women's uniform I left at your place, since when did you become such a pervert? Luo answered him that there was a good reason for that. Su said, trust me, there is no shame in a cute school uniform, so you can safely wear it. Luo thanked his friend for the advice and told him he could go back, but suddenly he took out his phone and took a picture of Luo in a girl's skirt and said if he came here, he should get something in return and said Luo would become popular if he posted that picture on the school forum. But Luo answered that he had some information about him, and if he sent it to the school board, he'd be in trouble, and he could report it to the police and be suspended from school for a month. At this moment, Su threw a briefcase of men's school uniforms at him and said, you're no fun. Su Mo, do you understand what happened today? Am I missing something? Luo asked, you were at school all day today, right? And you didn't go anywhere, you didn't meet anyone or give anything to anyone, am I saying right? Sue replied, "Hey, I get it, you mean if I put those pictures on the school website, your life will be over?" Luo replied angrily, "You're right, it probably will, but I'll take you with me. Compared to that, the curious crime you committed will be enough, like those cameras hidden in different unusual places." Sue said, as expected from Luo, "You are well informed." After a while Sue left, and Luo thought about the fact that Sue would not tell everyone that Lin Ruoyu was his girlfriend. Then Luo came home, he opened the door and suddenly his sister jumped on him and told him what kind of girl it was in his room this morning, and if he lied to her, she threatened to kill him. But Luo wondered who the girl was, what she was talking about. But his sister didn't believe him, and threatened him again, and told him to tell the truth. Luo asked, "Are you talking about Lin Ruoyu? We wanted to meet in the morning, but I forgot about it. Don't worry, I already apologized to her." Sis stood up and asked, "Is it true?" Luo told her that he had no reason to lie to his sister. Sis said he could have warned her, because she was so scared that some girl might steal her baby brother. But Luo reassured her and said no girl would go out with someone like him. His sister told him that if he called a girl into their house again, she would be furious. After a while Luo came to his room and lay down on his bed. Suddenly blue butterflies began to fly out of his stomach and these butterflies materialized into a beautiful girl. She looked at Luo and thought, "This man, is he the bearer of my power?" She flew up to him and gave him a hard slap. It made him wake up and be furious, but suddenly he saw the girl and asked in surprise, "What is this?" He stroked her and said she looked like some kind of doll. But she looked at him with surprised eyes and asked, "Man, do you wish you were dead?" Luo was greatly frightened and jumped away from her and thought, how can a doll talk? She told him her name was Karen Scotty, and since he didn't understand anything she suggested that he ask her questions and she would try to answer them. Luo said he wasn't interested in anything, and asked her to answer one question, as he woke up in a girl's body today, so she had something to do with it. Scotty answered that it was all because of her. She had long ago settled in his body and was accumulating powers to awaken while in a deep sleep. In this process Luo, as a host, would inevitably be infected with a small part of the power that belonged to her. Luo wondered, "What do you mean, contaminated?" She answered him, simply put, if the powerful energy in his body is not removed during the day, his power will gradually deplete. Until then he will maintain this appearance. Luo grabbed her and said, how can he turn into a girl if he can't even interact with them normally, since he's never even held his sister's hand, and told her to spare him that power. Suddenly Scotty slapped him again and told him that it was rude, but that he shouldn't be so immediately discouraged, since this problem was caused by her, she would be responsible for it, but Luo must be willing to cooperate. But Luo didn't know what Scotty meant by the word cooperation. She said it was very simple. She had once left her source of power in the ancient ruins and if she could get it, she would no longer need Luo's body, so he could forget about his problem. Luo asked where were the ruins. He wanted to solve his problem of changing into a girl, but unfortunately Scotty had forgotten where they were, but since she had woken up the time was not ripe yet, she would be accepting a body in this world. Luo wondered, does that mean until the time is right, he should continue to live as Lin Ruoyu? Scotty said that he would suppress the force on the force as much as possible. Even so, Luo would still retain the female form. Suddenly his sister walked into the room and asked him in surprise, who was he talking to? He was shocked by his sister's sudden appearance and said he was on the phone. She asked what it was about the phone call, that he was talking to some girl about some ruins. Luo awkwardly replied that he was talking to Su Mo and they were discussing an online game. She looked at him with a look of sympathy and said, that's good, and I thought you really hid a girl in your room. Luo said he would never lie to his little sister and he would never do that. She believed him and said she went to make dinner and she would wait for him. She closed the door but she didn't go anywhere and stayed to eavesdrop on Luo's conversation. But at that moment he took out his phone and specifically said loudly, just now my sister came up, if you need anything else say it fast, if you dare touch my sister, tomorrow I will bury your friend in cement. Sis heard this and believed Luo he was talking to Su Mo and she left. Luo heard footsteps as his little sister left. At this point the fairy came out again. He asked her how long he could stay in his body. Scotty told him that theoretically the transformation itself could last 3 hours at most. After she could suppress his body powers in a short time, it would take time to recover. However, there are other options. The ability is called failure. Although Scotty calls it an acquisition, Luo will be able to trade time now for tomorrow. At least Luo can be sure of tomorrow without incident. Luo was incredibly happy, and told her to activate it to the max, since he doesn't need to leave the room at night. The next morning, he stood by the mirror and thought, don't tell me a guy-turned-girl can be that attractive. Fairy Scatty told him to be ready, because next time she would suppress the power in his body, and for him to remember that he had 4 hours max and all that time she would be hidden in his body. He was going out to school and said that 4 hours of time would be enough. Come out of the house Fairy turned him back into a boy. After a while he came to the school and entered the classroom. There were some people in black robes with scythes waiting for him. Luo wondered to them, why were they all looking at him so strangely? Su Mo exclaimed, it's him, the beautiful girl we saw yesterday, she is dating Luo, take him down. Luo said, I knew those cretins would do something upon my return. Su answered, Brother Luo, I'm sorry, but you've committed a crime, you'd better surrender, maybe then I can get you a pardon, there's no point in running away, accept your fate with dignity. Luo closed the door, and tried to restrain them, but it did not work and he began to run away from them. Su ordered them to catch Luo. Luo ran from them around the school for a long time, but eventually he reached a dead end and he had no other option but to jump from the window. He flew down and at the last moment Fairy Scotty reappeared and Luo turned into a girl again. Su was shocked, he didn't think the prank would come to this. He looked out the window and there was no one there anymore. He told everyone else that they had missed him. Luo was incredibly angry at Su Mo and promised to take revenge on him for it, but the fairy told him before he took revenge he should take care of himself first. Since she had unlocked the limit of his power in his body beforehand, but now he would need 1 hour before she could suppress her power again. Luo was surprised because he would have to miss his morning class because of this, but there was nothing Fairy could do about it. An hour later Su came to the school canteen and started to eat. Suddenly he felt a strong spice in his food. He looked and saw some chili peppers. Su Mo was furious and exclaimed who dared to plant hot peppers in his food. Luo laughed and told him that his aunt in the cafeteria specially made concentrated mixed with chili noodles. Su Mo looked at Luo but never said anything. He turned and left. But at the last moment, Luo said, September 31st at 1935 in one of the famous cafeteria on Yanjiang Avenue. Su, do you remember what Article 3, Paragraph 5 of the Code of Disciples? Would you like me to repeat it to you? Su Mo sat down to Luo and said, you are no longer persecuted, everything that happened this morning was planned by them, I have nothing to do, I really had no choice but to support them, I hope you forgive me, but Luo said that he does not believe him. Su said, I almost forgot, you were out this morning and there's one thing you need to know. Our school has events planned for every year, and this year they chose a cultural festival. Luo replied, just a cultural festival that imitates the Japanese school, the end is the same as the school's annual festival. Su Mo replied that it is, and it is done to attract freshmen this year to enter next year, and the whole organization and task will be shared among all the classes and clubs. Luo replied, in that case, if the task is for all classes, what can we do? Su Mo said that it won't be that easy this time, because the rule is that everyone must participate, and if Luo doesn't have something to show, he will be laughed at and it will be a failure. Luo asked, you have ideas, don't you? I'm not such a bad student, I've already started to schedule our class program in advance, as long as you follow my orders, you can probably become my right hand." Luo was silent, as he didn't know what to answer him. Sumo asked if he would help him, as he had worked hard to get this opportunity. Luo said, "No punishment for all violations." Sumo and Luo shook hands and made a deal. After a while the class started and the second grade teacher, Lee Mukin, came into the classroom. She said that probably everyone knows that next week their school will have a cultural festival, and this year the school hopes that everyone can participate, and she hopes that everyone will sign up. She asked for a show of hands for those who wanted to participate in the drawing competition, then she asked for a show of hands for those who wanted to participate in the singing competition. At this time, Luo began to feel something wrong. He asked Scuddy what was going on. She said that she had made a little mistake and the curse of overwhelming force was about to be turned off. She advised him to hide somewhere, though sooner or later it would be revealed. Luo told the teacher he wasn't feeling well and asked to go to the nurse's office. She let him leave the classroom. He went to the bathroom and there he turned into a girl again. He told the fairy that he couldn't trust her and now he couldn't rely on her words. Scotty apologized to him, and said that the premature cancellation of the spell had caused an error in the curse, and promised to solve it. But now he would have to be as a girl for a while. She asked him how long he was going to be in the bathroom. Luo looked at her and exclaimed, "You've got to be kidding, who would want to stay in a place like this?" But just in case, Luo took his women's uniform with him and he got changed and walked out of the men's room. That's when he met some guy. Luo completely forgot that he was in the men's room. He got embarrassed and left. Suddenly he met Sumo in the hall. He was so surprised he couldn't stand on the stairs and fell down. Sumo ran up to him and wanted to help him and said he would call for help. But he told him he was fine and there was no need to call for help. Sumo said in that case he could call Luo. But he insisted he was fine and she would see Luo later. After a while he lay down on the bench, as he was very hurt from such a fall and cursed Sumo for jumping out at him so suddenly. Scotty told him not to be so pessimistic, because his body should be recovering pretty quickly from a minor injury. Luo thought that if things continued like this, he would miss all his lessons. Fairy Scotty said, "That's why I'm saying you need to stay here for a while so your form doesn't make the problem worse. You can only blame it on your fate." Luo replied, "Isn't it the worst part of my fate to meet you? What's in it for me? But still, what was it during the fall? Maybe for a while I lost control of my body." Scuddy replied that her life depended on him, for he and she are one person, and she might be a little swept up in his actions, but that only happens when he loses consciousness or self-control. When he was falling, his consciousness was distracted, so she had the opportunity to intervene briefly. Luo said it sounded like a normal ghost ability, but the fairy was not pleased with his words and flicked him on the nose. She told him not to compare her to a ghost. After a while, Luo returned to class, but already in a boy's body. He thought, "I still don't know which side Sumo is on." He sat down at his desk and Sumo told him that even though he was afraid of Luo before, he was very sorry, because he thought he was his equal. Luo asked, "Really? What do you mean?" Sumo pointed his finger at the blackboard. It said Sumo belonged to the organizers of the festival, while Luo was signed up for the song and dance competition. Luo was very upset when he saw this. He asked Sumo why he was on the list. Sumo replied that it was useless to ask him about it. Shouldn't Luo know that? At this point, Luo remembered that when the teacher was asking the willing to participate in the singing and dancing competitions, he raised his hand and asked off to the nurse's station, and most likely the teacher had misunderstood everything. Sumo smirked at Luo and told him it already happened. Why doesn't he just accept it? If he debuts and becomes popular, I hope you don't forget your friend Sumo. Luo took Sumo's hand and said, "Don't worry, if you don't succeed in the organization, I will help you, we will perform together." But he didn't want that and quickly sat down in his seat. Suddenly Sumo asked Luo, "Who was that girl?" Luo asked in surprise, what did he mean? He said, Ruoyu, I'm afraid she's no ordinary person, right? Luo wondered if he had noticed something. He asked Tel if there was a way to erase Sumo's memory. She said it was possible, but the victim would have short-term consequences. Luo was ready and Scotty said that he should hit Sumo hard, then he would lose consciousness and lose his recent memories. Luo said that was a bad joke. He asked Sumo where he met Ling Ruoyu. Sumo said, we met by accident and there was an accident and it happened that she did incredible things. She tripped on the stairs and did a somersault on the fly and it looked very unnatural. Luo smirked and said that in this world he is better off not knowing some things, and knowing too much is not always a good thing. After a while Luo left and thought Sumo had noticed something, but he hadn't. Luo went to the teacher and asked her to cross off the list of singing and dancing competitions, but she said that she had already sent the list to the Board of Education and the list had probably already reached them. He asked in surprise if the list could be withdrawn or if he could opt out. But the teacher said that was impossible, only if he could find someone to replace his candidacy. The rules allowed that, if not, you could always withdraw, and she would help with the consequences, because she too was responsible for the festival. Luo replied to the teacher that he would think about it before he made a final decision and he left the office. Scotty asked him, it seems you can't say no directly, what are you going to do next? Luo replied that he had no other options, and he had to cancel his participation in this contest. But Scotty thought and offered him an option, because theoretically he had a chance, he could take part as Lin Ruoyu. But Luo wasn't satisfied with that option, he thought it was even worse. But Scotty suggested to him that she could take over his body and act in his place. He wondered, have you ever done music before? She said no, but I think I could do it. Suddenly at that moment some girl was passing in the hallway, he took Scotty abruptly and hit her in his jacket. A few days later, Luo came to school and Sumo asked him how he was doing. Luo said it was no thanks to him. He replied that Luo would accept the reality arranged by fate, and since he was his friend he was willing to help Luo. Luo asked what Sumo was planning to do and how could you help him. He said that his friends would help him and they would give their all and they would support him friendly during the performance. But Luo grabbed Sumo by the arm and told him to forget it. Suddenly Luo felt something wrong and fainted. Sumo picked him up and was about to call an ambulance, but Luo regained consciousness and said he was fine and just needed to go to the nurse's station, and asked Sumo to explain the situation to his teacher if he didn't come back in the afternoon. Sumo replied that Luo didn't look well and offered to walk him to the nurse, but Luo refused his help. On his way out of class, he asked Scotty what was going on with him. She angrily told him, appeared. Luo asked in surprise, what do you mean, what showed up? Scotty said, the pain is a reaction to the appearance of the ruins, the seal energy in your body is similar to them, that must be the reason. The moment the ruins appeared, the power in your body was attracted by the spiritual source, which made her condition a little restless. Luo asked, then where are they? She replied, I can only vaguely feel them, but they must be to the north. The closer you get, the more clearly you will feel it. He said cheerfully, great, so we just have to go north. Scotty told him that there was no telling what might be waiting for them in those surroundings and it might be very dangerous. She asked, are you sure we should go? Luo was okay with the danger and they went in search of the ruins. Walking through the woods, Scotty said that if her senses were correct, the site of the ruins must be nearby, but that energy seemed unstable. Luo asked her what she meant. She said that simply put the trace that should be present here is only half there and they need to be very careful. After a while Scotty sensed something was coming towards them and they needed to hurry. They ran through the woods and found some magical place. Luo asked her, is this the place? Scotty said it was indeed the entrance to the ruins and she could feel the energy of a spiritual source inside, but like she said earlier, it hadn't fully emerged yet. She told him to go back, and they came here for nothing today, but since it has appeared, it means they already know the coordinates of the place, and they will save some time in the future. Luo asked in surprise, "Are you telling us to just leave?" And at that moment they were surrounded by a pack of wild boars. Scotty said that there had been a slight leak of energy from a spiritual source, it had attracted the beasts in the area, and those beasts had some signs of madness. But Luo didn't care, because now there had to be some way to deal with the wild boars. She said there was only one way out of this situation, that was to kill them. But Luo wasn't strong enough to kill them all, so he decided to run away from them. Scotty asked him, did he really just decide to run away? Luo said he had no other choice, since they were outnumbered. But Scotty had other plans. She activated her power of magic and said, there will be a blue flash of thunder, a thunder light that will turn everything it touches into ashes, and at that moment a lightning strike hit all the boars and they died. Luo was shocked at her strength and stood in a stupor. He told her he looked tired. If this situation happened again, would he be able to deal with everyone again? Scotty told him what he was talking about, because now she doesn't have enough power now, because when she uses magic she consumes life energy. Even now for a few hours, she won't have the ability to suppress the power inside his body, and all that time he will be in the guise of a girl. And if a similar situation happens again a few more times, she will fall asleep again, and by then Luo's fate will be doomed. Luo didn't know what to answer, and awkwardly told her, don't we have to go back now? But Scotty said that he would have to wait, for she must close the void of the world around the ruins, otherwise there would be more casualties among the beasts, who would be infected by the energy of the spiritual source. After a while Scotty overworked and expended too much energy and fell asleep. Luo did not know what to do, for he could not be outside all the time, but at the same time there was the risk that if he came home in the guise of a girl, he might meet his sister again. But it was still the safer option, because his sister might not be home at that time. He was just going to open the door when his mother came over to him and said, really, what are you doing here? He said, my name is Lin Ruoyu. Luo asked me to bring him something from home. She said, this rascal, I'm his mother, this child still has no manners, I want to apologize for his behavior. He said, that's because I was passing by, so it's okay. Mom replied, but then again, when little Luo got such a pretty girl, I never heard him mention it. When Mama came home, she told her to come over and visit them. She offered her coffee or tea. But suddenly Luo said, there was only soda in the fridge, and at that moment he realized he had said something he shouldn't have said and told Mom that she didn't need anything and she had to go back to school soon. But Mama poured a Coke and offered to drink it, and said, oh that Luo, not at all sorry that your girlfriend is running your business, into her father. But he said she misunderstood him, she was passing by and decided to help. Luo wanted to leave the house as quickly as possible so he wouldn't have to talk to his mom, so he told her that he had to go up to the second floor to leave Luo's things there. Mom said that Luo's room was on the second floor. He thanked her for her help and laughed his way up there, but he was in such a hurry he didn't notice the fairy Scotty fell out of his pocket. Mom thought it was a doll and picked it up. She was very surprised as the quality of the doll was incredibly high, and they didn't make these in their time. At this time Luo was in his room and had no idea that he had dropped the fairy Scotty. He didn't expect his mother to come back so early. He put his hand in his pocket and said, Scotty, after tonight, you'll get better overnight, right? But at that moment he didn't find Scooty in his pocket and was shocked. Luo remembered that he had definitely gone home with Scotty in his pocket, but had he really dropped her? He realized it might have fallen out of his pocket while he was sitting on the couch. Luo hurried downstairs to find Scooty. His mother asked him, Lin Ruoyu, is this your doll? It's a very interesting doll, don't forget to pick it up. If you lose something important to you, it won't be easy to get it back. Luo went to his mother and said, you are right, then I will stop bothering you today and I will go. At this point Scotty was very angry at him for losing her and she bit him. After a while Luo and Scooty went outside and she asked him what he was going to do next, now that he had nowhere to go. Luo said all he had to do was wait it out. He asked how much longer he would be in the guise of a girl. Scotty replied that she had spent too much power today and needed about 3 more hours. Luo was frustrated as he didn't know what to do. Scotty said she had a suggestion on how to pass the time. He asked her what she was suggesting. Scotty said, "You know that the beings outside the ruins will be under the influence of spiritual sources. Some in them have evolved over 1,000 years, and beyond that I can't tell what the situation is. The power I can use is limited, even you can't use it. Let me teach you how to use the power so you can protect yourself." Luo asked how hard is it to learn. Scotty replied that it depended on talent, however his talent wasn't that bad. He learned some self-defense techniques pretty quickly. After a while he agreed and she extended her finger to his forehead and at that moment blue butterflies appeared. Suddenly they moved to a place unknown to Luo. He saw asking where they were. Scotty said it was an imaginary world, and she woke up in it when she became a spirit, hence it was Des, a cross between illusion and reality. It was like a field for his convenient training. Luo wondered what else the imaginary world was, and said won't he forget about this place. Scotty told him if he even wanted to forget this place, he couldn't do it. She told him to stop talking and give her control of his body. She was going to show his soul to remember what she had to remember. Scotty directed his head butterfly and she sat on his forehead and she gained control of his body. She told him, "Carefully feel the paths of spiritual power flowing throughout your body." At that moment he waved his finger and there was a big explosion. Scotty told him that the most basic way to use this spiritual power is to collect it in his fingers. The power depends on the amount of spiritual energy and the level of compression. Suddenly Scotty got out of his head and asked him if he remembered anything. Luo replied, "Yes, I felt something, maybe practice first." Scotty told him that he could ask her questions, for they would not stop until his body was in critical condition. Next time Scooty wanted to show him escape skills. Since the depth of the ruins is unknown, the most important thing is to save his life. Scooty again inhabited his body and showed him the skill of running fast, but suddenly she hit a tree and came out of his head again and asked if he was alright. Luo said if you hit a tree at 80 km per hour you would be fine. You didn't even explain how to run it. Scooty said apparently it was too early to learn this skill and so she suggested continuing to practice the explosion. Luo accumulated a lot of energy in his fingers but at the last moment Scooty told him to stop but it was too late and there was a huge explosion. This brought Luo back to the real world.